My name's Johnny, and I teach live event production. And I've got to teach my students a brand new piece of software that they've not used before, and I've got less than 2 hours to do it. And this is how I think I'm going to do it.
What are the 5 things you need to know to get started on Resolume?
So let's start the story with the lesson and show students how to navigate the software.
So let's start over here in the layers. This is where all your media, your images, your videos, they will live in these square boxes here. So just underneath, we've also got 2 more screens. We've got the composition monitor and we've got the preview monitor. We've got this, what I like to call attribute section. So this is where we can affect either an entire layer, an entire group, the entire composition, or individual clips. So let's head over to the bottom right corner. Files is where all your media is going to live. Your videos, images, anything that we can bring into Resolume, we can also then drag and drop. Let's click on the effects tab when we're in the effects window. If I double click on any of the effects, I can see what that effect will look like in my preview window. And then we have sources. So in Resolume, we can also generate sources. We don't have to just drag in images, video. We can actually generate our own sources. Okay, now I've had a look at the layout. Let's look at number 2 on the list of what you need to know to get started on Resolume. Let's import some media. So I'm going to use some of the Resolume stock footage over here. And if you can't see the previews over here, you can click this square icon over here, which is the show previews. And I'm just going to think about putting something on my base layer. So for my background, if I double click, I'll see it in the preview. And that will do. Let's put it onto my first layer. And to make that full screen, I'm just going to right click, resize and fill. If I click on the image now, you can see that in my composition monitor. So that's active. So that's my background layer. Now let's bring in an object, something that I can superimpose over the top on my next layer. That'll be visually appealing. I'm going to grab this ethnic 2. Now let's just preview that. So this is going to be an object, it's got no background to it, but it's going to be something like a focal point in the middle of my composition. So if I just click column 1 here, I can now see both of those. And I'm going to use my column 1 with images or videos that I think stylistically go together. Now let's drag in a source. If I double click in any of my sources, I can see what they look like in the preview window. I'm going to use these red cells. Let's put these red cells on. Now that looks cool, but let's make this a little bit more visually appealing because at the minute they're just stacked on top of each other. Let's make it a bit more interesting. Let's move on to number 3, using the attribute editors. So the first thing I'm going to edit is the blend mode on this meatball image. And I'm going to try subtract. So it's made it a little bit more visually appealing to me. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to my second layer image and I'm just going to make that a bit more interesting. Let's just make that slightly bigger. Cool, that's made it big. So let's move on to number 4, effects. So one of the effects I like to use is mirror. And I'm going to drag that onto my composition. If I bring in this x-axis, it's going to bring in the mirror effects horizontally. Let's bring in this in out. Let's spread this. Let's get that halfway. As if I flip the y-axis. Ooh. That looks pretty cool. Let's bring in one more effect. One of my favorites I like to use, colorize. So I really like to use this colorize plugin because if we're on actual gig and there's a theme or certain colors, or the artist or performer wants a certain color scheme to go with their set, I can use this colorize to kind of just use those colors that will go with what's happening on stage. I can pick a color, let's go for like a lime green, and I can drag and drop that onto here, and I can use that as part of my palette and something that I can pick during the show. So if I click red, blue, so now my primary colors are what I've picked on this palette. The last thing you need to know to get started in Resolume, number 5, triggering. So I'm going to go over to shortcuts and I'm going to edit keyboard. The first thing I'm going to use it for is to bypass on my mirror effect. And I'm just going to press the letter Z. My Z is controlling the mirror bypass function, and right now the mode is on toggle, so I can toggle it on and toggle it off. That's perfect. The other thing I want to control is the flip Y button, so I'm going to put X on that one. Now I'm going to hit stop on that. Next, let's show you some shortcuts on the MIDI keyboard. So I'm going to hit edit here, and everything that's highlighted in green are things that I can control via MIDI. So let's do the first thing. Now I want to control these individual layer opacities so I can bring in a clip or have control over its opacity. So let's click on layer 1, and I'm going to use that with my first fader. Then I'm going to click on layer 2, second fader, layer 3, third fader. Now there's a couple more things I want to control with my MIDI controller, and that's going to be this link 1 button. And then I'm going to have tap tempo on one of these pads down here. Let's use the bottom right on that pad. So I like to use the dashboard link knobs because I can control multiple attributes with the same link if I wanted to. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag the opacity for my colorize effects onto the first link knob, but then I'm also going to have the contrast function on my colorize also on that first knob. Now you also saw me assign the tap tempo to one of my pads, but at the minute it's not affecting any of my clips. Now that's because my clips over here in the attribute editor are only listening to the timeline. So I'm just going to change my layer 2 clip from timeline to being BPM sync. And then the same for my bass layer, synth 006, from timeline to being BPM sync. And then now when I tap tempo, they will be in time. Now we're actually ready to put this to the test with some music. All right, so what's this lesson going to look like in a practical room?
So this is my classroom. Well, actually, it's a production space. And when we're not doing live events, we're in here planning for them, practicing with equipment, and getting ready for the next live event.
Okay, so let's speed things up. This is the room. And we're going to turn something like this, which is just a black box with some flight cases in, into a room like this. So now we've kind of sorted out the room. What I've got is a couple stations around, so I'm going to give everyone a laptop. They're going to work in pairs with the projector when they come, and they're going to practice Resolume onto some of these bare walls here. Screen, 2 lights up there.
Whenever I get the chance to prepare a room in advance of students coming, I always do it. It creates that wow factor as soon as they come in.
I'm going to set a challenge right at the end, and what we're going to do, they're going to pick their favourite tune and they're just going to have a little go VJ into some music, and we'll do it on this the main bit over here. So let's see how it goes.